I just escaped from a call with a new player who, no joke, trauma dumped his entire life's story, unprompted, for over 2 hours. I probably know him better than every acquaintance I've ever had combined. He stopped only briefly afterwards to say, "Oh, I'm rambling. I do that sometimes," before continuing on without giving anyone a chance to say anything. The others just dropped out of the call without a word because they just could not take it anymore. I felt so bad, so I stuck around until over 3 hours later of non-stop talking before I had to just type in chat that I was getting late, so I was gonna get off the call. Wasting 5 hours of people's time. I felt bad for wasting 30 minutes of my eye doctor's time struggling to put in contact lenses. And that's his job. I cannot imagine doing this to some random dude. And then I molded a chocolate out of his... Where are you going? It's been 5 hours and I just missed dinner because of you. I just came here to play D&D, man. Not do whatever this is. This happened back in the high school days, hanging out with friends until the wee hours of the morning. We played Dungeons & Dragons all the time, and whoever was DMing was decided the night of. Thinking back on it, it was a bad idea to constantly switch between games, but hey, we had fun. The Dungeon Master this time was someone that used to break Pathfinder any chance they got by combining class features and feats to make combat not very fun. So some of us were a little weary. Now, a good friend of mine makes very good characters, theatrical, serious, and always stays in character, but when he can't really think of something, their fallback is to collaborate on a duo character with me. In a pirate-themed campaign, he was first mate and I was voted captain. I was the smooth talker brain and he was the simple-minded big boy brawn. And this time, I was Jack, and he was Dexter. This time, I played the quiet guy that was meant to get his hands dirty, and he played the talkative comedic relief, over-the-shoulder rat folk that hid in my backpack and lobbed questionable toxins he made chilling in my bag. We start and I'm playing my part. I'm being the legs. There wasn't really an intro to the campaign. We were all just together walking to our destination. Our characters introduce each other, and before my turn came up, my partner speaks up for me, describing both myself and himself, then going over both of our professions. The two players in question gave each other a glance, and we continue on. My partner continued hiding out in my backpack, making his alchemical concoctions. We were on our way to receive work in the upcoming town, trekking alongside a river, when I was jumped. My backpack was cut off and stolen by one of the other players. Another held the bag shut while I angrily tried to get it back. And since Ratfolk was stuck inside the bag, my partner stuck inside the bag, all my friend could do is just sit there and be confused and angry. The two players proceed to tie the bag shut and toss my partner into a nearby river. While there were attempts to break free soon after the bag hit the water, I made a break for it and just about made it to the river before I was grabbed. When both my friend and I have gained some semblance of control, we argued, why the heck would you attack not one, but two players you're supposed to be working with? One of the two other guys said, "Your bag smelled and I wanted to get rid of it. That's all." The other pretty much agreed and just wanted to join into the chaos. My friend was also obviously upset. They knew that he was in the bag, so why did they think it was okay to murder him over it? When they shared that their alignment was chaotic neutral and that allows them to act this way since they were playing according to their own wants and nothing else. Dude, it's not a big deal that your character died, alright? It's just what my character would do. He is chaotic neutral. Dude, I don't care. What? Dude, I don't care about the decisions your character's making. I care about the decisions you're making as like a player, as a person. If your character forces you to make stupid decisions, then that's not a problem with the character, that's a problem with you. Make a different character then. You have control over that, don't you? But I can't control that. What is that supposed to mean? The character sheet has been
of its own. What is your command, my master?
They will never know the relationship we have, the power that I give you. Kill their characters. Use the power of chaotic neutral. Slay them all.
Yes, They will all die by my hand. My stupidity will know no bounds, and chaotic neutral will be the avenue by which...
In-game, they let me go and continued down the road while I dove in and rescued my friend from not drowning, not even 20 minutes into the game, making sure they were okay, and then dejectedly catching up with the group. The two a-hole players left us behind and just took the job for themselves. My friend and I just tuned out, only responding when our character or either of us were spoken to directly. I can't really remember what else happened for the rest of the night, but the Dungeon Master dropped that campaign after session 1. The two chaotic neutral players never said sorry, never thought to make sure we understood that it was all in-game and how they felt in person, and the Dungeon Master, well, that guy never stopped any of it. They believed it was actual roleplay taking place. The two other players have now DM'd their own games, and after this took place, one of them derailed a campaign twice. As in, after messing up big time, they killed off their character, made another, and then almost killed multiple other player characters, ruining a main plot point in the process. So at the time, I just expected chaotic behavior, just not blatant attempts at player character murder. Me and my friend have stopped playing with them at this point years ago, and still to this day, we just started Curse of Strahd with a whole new group. Well, I hope the Curse of Strahd does not claim you, but in any case, yeah, these two players are using alignment as a shield for behavior that just straight up sucks. We talked about this in our recent Baldur's Gate 3 video, but giving in to the dark urge might be fun in a single player game, but here, it's just straight up bullying of other people, and that is kind of rude. It doesn't matter that your actions are solely in-game. It's still extremely annoying when you attempt maliciously to sideline another player character just because that's what my character would do, or even worse, just because the bag smelled. I normally understand when DMs don't know how to handle toxic situations at their gaming group. You're here to play a friggin' board game. You're not here to handle people's interpersonal drama, right? But at the same time, this kind of passivity, it does ruin the game. I mean, these players were going out of their way to ruin the game for other people, and the DM didn't do anything to help them out, even in hindsight. I mean, to be fair, it shouldn't be surprising for a high school game. I mean, how many of us were smart or emotionally stable in high school, but still, doesn't mean it's okay. It's still pretty bad. The title explains it all, but I'll go into details. I've been DMing for this group for about 4 years now. They're all new at this time, so I decided to run Lost Mines of Fendelva for them. Spoilers for that adventure, you have been warned. The players had finally arrived at the big, bad, evil guy's lair, and after his evil speech, the battle breaks out. So far, so good. During the fight, our Barbarian, the player this is about, kills 2 giant spiders, which is great. At this point, our wizard is low on health and has almost no spell slots left. The cleric and the ranger are downed and are rolling death saving throws, and the rogue has just been stunned. At this point, it's just the bard 1v1ing the big bad evil guy, who I had buffed up from the original adventure. So yeah, they could really use the barbarian to either help people up or, you know, kill the big bad evil guy. However, the Barbarian instead asked the DM, me, to describe the room again, and after I mentioned that there's a 9-foot-tall statue of a dwarf seated on a throne located above the back wall, he asked to make an investigation check. I ask what he's trying to investigate for, and he tells me, I want to investigate to see if I can tip the statue over and have it land on the big bad evil guy. I let him roll, and he rolls an 18. I tell him, the statue depicting Dumathoin. Guys, come on. The statue is old and carries 2 shining emerald gems where his eyes are supposed to be. Given that the statue is 9 feet tall and the big bad evil guy is currently 35 feet away from you, it's clear you won't be able to tip it over and have it land on the BBEG. It also seems too heavy to lift, even for you. As I finish describing this, he tells me, I roll to see if I understand this, and rolls immediately before I can tell him that he already rolled for that. That was the investigation check. He now rolls on an 11 on this new check and decides that his character doesn't understand it. He describes how his character starts trying to push the statue and tip it over. The fight just continues on, and he keeps trying to push the dang statue, trying to lodge it and push it over, until he eventually lands a nat 20. 3 player turns after the big bad evil guy has already been defeated. I sigh as I describe how he manages to push it over, the stone cracking and the gems falling out, which according to the adventure triggers a chain reaction that causes the ceiling to collapse, and each player must make a dexterity saving throw or take 4d10 bludgeoning damage, half upon a success on DC 15. The rogue, the ranger, and the barbarian all fail, while the bard and cleric succeed. The wizard asked if he could misty step out of the room via the open door, and I tell him yes. The outcome is that only the wizard and the bard got out with more than 5 hit points. The cleric got knocked back down to 1 hit point but survived. However, the rogue and the ranger are both straight up dead, while the barbarian got knocked unconscious. "You need to figure out why my barbarian would have done this," the barbarian player says. At this point, everyone is confused and panicking as the group only has 1 scroll of Revivify and is trying to figure out who to use it on. They're also angry with the barbarian as he had no reason to do this. When I asked him, he said, "I don't know. Do you have any ideas for why I did that? I mean, you're the dungeon master." I eventually came up with a story reason for why his character did it, but I talked to the players afterwards, and they were all greatly annoyed with his behavior because it seemed to come out of nowhere. It was unprompted with no reason or explanation for why he, as a person, not as a character, decided that would be what his character would do. To this day, he still won't give an answer other than, "I don't know." Okay, I want to say at the top, this is the barbarian's fault. The barbarian is playing a character who is way too stupid to the point where it's making the game unfun for everyone else. I love character flaws, but if your flaws make the game unfun or kill off another person's character for extremely dumb reasons, well, your character flaws are going to really annoy everyone there. As a DM, I love when player actions have major consequences. However, here, the consequences are for one dude's really stupid moves. I think I would have either retconned this or just not let the barbarian do this in the first place. It often sucks losing your character. Losing your character like this? Ooh, I'd be pissed. I'm not a new tabletop role-playing game player, but I'm not a very experienced one either. I had several short adventures and a couple of attempted campaigns, though none went far for various reasons. The story I'm about to share is far from the worst I've seen on your channel, but it's the worst I had, so I would like to vent a bit about it because it really frustrated me as I wonder whether I dodged the bullet or missed out on a potentially amazing campaign. An important note, I consider myself a rules lawyer and I am proud of it. I'm hopefully not the bad type though. I try not to be disruptive during the games, leaving rules discussions for between sessions, and I usually don't get any complaints about it. What matters for the purposes of this story is that I'm the type to do thorough research on the rules, and while I can misinterpret some things, I tend to not miss these important details. It all started one day when I noticed an interesting announcement in our local roleplay group. A new pirate-themed campaign with an incredibly interesting premise running on a system I was unfamiliar with. 7th Sea 1st Edition? Despite only playing D&D 5th Edition before that, I decided to check out the rulebook, and I immediately fell in love with it. It has so many cool and creative mechanics, so I immediately wrote to the game master of that game, and he seemed like a pretty nice guy, so I joined in. And sadly, the game never started. We never got enough players, and then the GM got busy, and then the idea died. Now, the actual story after that was that I was very eager to play the 7th Sea game, so I asked in the chat if anyone would be interested in running a game in that edition. I'm not confident enough yet to DM myself. Luckily, there was one guy who was already planning on doing it, and apparently was a big fan of the system in general. I'll be calling him Jeff going forward. He found a few more players, none of which are actually relevant here, and we were about to start. But first, we had to create characters. Jeff was pretty generous. He allowed us to use any additional source books, providing a spreadsheet of options and costs, but not the books themselves, and provided a sizable discount on several features that felt overpriced. It's a spend point/experience system to get skills type of thing. It wasn't based on levels. Other than the discounts, he did not mention there being any house rules. I quickly threw together a character I thought would be a great fit, inspired by a character from a book I recently read, and after I presented the sheet to Jeff, the first argument arose. It was about features called Arcana, special features representing the character's greatest virtue or flaw, in-universe represented by a magical aura certain mages can see. My character concept relied on one of those features, an almost supernatural intuition. But when Jeff saw it, he said something I never heard before. I couldn't just get whatever Arcana I wanted. I had to do a destiny spread to determine which one I had. I can only think of this. I was confused. The player's handbook didn't mention anything about having to get one randomly, and Destiny Spread is only mentioned as a purely in-universe thing with no mechanics attached. I double-checked it, and even wrote to the first game master from the unsuccessful game to confirm it, which he did, though I don't remember when exactly I did that. After stating to Jeff that the book just says, you can spend 10 points to get an Arcana, and then there's a list of them, his response was, well, the book doesn't say that you can choose. Okay, then I asked how is it determined then, and what this Destiny Spread is, and he couldn't give me a proper answer. Okay, I think I'll have to just roll another character. Playing that one without that feature just did not seem very interesting to me. For that, I decided to finally check out additional source books. Before, I'd only read the core one. There, I finally find out that the Destiny Spread is actually an official mechanic. In short, it is a way to randomly generate some additional details for your character's backstory in exchange for some additional free features. And these details could be pretty severe and could alter a character pretty drastically. For example, one of the options was a hereditary knightship from a local queen. Not only could that potentially alter your whole backstory, but also lock you out from certain options, such as my new character who was going to be a knight of a different knightly order. Overall, it's a pretty good option, but it's just not something every character would want to use. And what's important, this was clearly supposed to be optional and was placed in optional rulebooks. Nothing in the text said it somehow overrides the player's guide. I wrote that to Jeff, but he remained adamant. Some of the coolest features in the game were now locked behind a lottery that could totally ruin your character. It'll make characters more interesting. They're too flat otherwise, he said. To clarify, he still allowed us to create characters using the Destiny Spread, but that would mean no Arcana. As I've written it, it seems as just a few quick exchanges, but in reality, I spent a fair amount of time trying to find some arguments to try and convince him otherwise. I'm not opposed to house rules or other changes to the established game. In this very case, Jeff stated that one of the major secret societies, this is a system that is supposed to run in a pre-written world rather than being more generic like D&D, well, one of those secret societies just doesn't exist in his game, and I was totally fine with that, despite wanting my first character to be connected with them. It came up before the Arcana thing. It's his game. He can make changes, but in this case, he insisted that it's exactly how the rules are written and used quotes from the book to prove it. So I could do the same to convince him otherwise, right? Though in hindsight, I probably went too far with it. But whatever, Session 0/Session 1 came by, and we got together and started to present/create our characters. It went pretty well, all things considered. We rolled for the Destiny Spread. I did decide to risk it at the end. I was lucky and didn't get anything too bad, and the other players, despite getting some dramatic stuff, including the knighthood thing I mentioned earlier, did not seem to care too much. Good for them. After that, we still had some time, so we started our adventure. Got together, received our main quest, and then had to do a chase through dungeons. Nothing too special. However, I did notice we didn't get any XP. The rulebook suggests a similar system to Milestone, with a certain amount of XP given out at the end of each session and or adventure. It is a bit confusing, with a couple of additional ways to get I'll mention later. Not a big deal, we did almost nothing, so I understand we would get nothing, but I did make a note to myself to ask Jeff how exactly we'll be getting XP. As I said, the book was confusing about it, so I just wanted to know what system he would be using. After that, I got into another argument with him on a topic that is not directly relevant and requires too much context to explain. In essence, it was a repeat of our first argument where his interpretation of a rule seemed obviously wrong to me, and since he did not say it was some sort of house rule, I tried to convince him otherwise. Honestly, this one was even more stupid on my part, spending too much time arguing about an almost irrelevant thing for way too long. It just started as a simple enough correction, but once I started, I got a bit too invested in it. Finally, we get to the third and last argument, the experience. I did ask Jeff about how we're getting it, and his answer was pretty confusing. To explain it, there's a system in the game called drama dice. It's in essence very similar to D&D Inspiration. Players get these dice for doing something the game master considers cool, and they can be used to improve rolls. But here, they're a bit more essential. You can have multiple of them, and they can be used to activate the aforementioned Arcana features. And finally, when you get normal experience, your leftover drama dice are turned into additional points of experience each. So, what was Jeff's system? Well, we don't get the normal baseline experience as the book suggests. Instead, we can only get experience from drama dice and from backgrounds, basically personal side quests that are defined in the rules. In other words, the only way to get experience is to do cool things as the game master sees it, and by pursuing personal quests, which was too reliant on his opinions on how he led the game. And considering the specifics of our quests, a long distance travel far from our characters' homes, the last part could be pretty difficult. We do get a couple of drama dice each time after we exchange old ones, but only a couple. Oh, and if we wanted to get experience, we couldn't use these drama dice on anything else, which I later found out on an online forum was a disliked part of the mechanic even in the base game, and some players house ruled it away, yet Jeff leaned fully into it. His arguments for such a system was that the players who don't put in the effort should not be rewarded. No DM will ever exploit that system. Okay, so I take her hand and I say, I have no idea what my future holds, but it would be so incredible if you were part of it. But we need to be honest with each other from now on, if we're going to survive the battles to come. Hey, DM, I'm trying to... What? Oh, yeah, that was okay. It was pretty good, yeah, I guess. I mean, I kind of need your half of the roleplay interaction in order to make it work, but, is it at least decent? Can I get some experience or something? No, alright? Your roleplay is just not strong enough. Okay, seriously, dude, this system kind of sucks, alright? I haven't gotten experience in forever, and I've been roleplaying my heart out trying to earn it, okay? I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I feel like it's just because I didn't get you a coffee last week. What? Absolutely not. There is no favoritism in this game at all. How dare you? Hey, DM, I brought the croissants you asked for. Hey, oh, there you are. Finally, the croissant. You get 20,000 points of experience. It seemed like a pretty bad system to me, as it would be too punishing for newer players who can't properly roleplay, and I did try and convince him of that, but since this time he admitted that this was his own idea rather than something he got from the rules, though he did not admit that right away, I wasn't too insistent, and I was willing to try it, but I did mention that I could not fully trust him after such examples as him taking away the most notable features or character creations without warning, at which he again was insistent that what he did was perfectly within the rules. It turned into yet another prolonged argument about Arcana features, during which he outright stated that I can't convince him by quoting written words, though never once did he admit he was playing against the written words. I understood I couldn't really play with him. Who knows what other rules I misunderstood, and I couldn't fully trust myself for not starting any more arguments. I said that to him, and his last words before I left were, "No one likes rules lawyers." So, yeah, I certainly handled it pretty poorly, and it really left me thinking, did I manage to identify a bad game master early, or was I the problem and the game would go perfectly fine if I just accepted what he said? I later heard from another player in the club that Jeff does have an iffy reputation, and there were some things that could be considered early signs of railroading, but I did not look too much into the former and the latter because my bias could just be showing. I do hope I learned from this experience, but the story is especially hurtful to me because I realized that finding another game in this amazing system will likely prove impossible, as it's very obscure and the local community is not that big. Other than the first GM and Jeff, I did not see anyone even mentioning it. So yeah, TLDR, I get into several prolonged rules debates with a game master who refused to listen to any of my arguments, which led me to quitting a game I really liked otherwise after just one session. Am I the a-hole? It's a little nuanced, but not really. Drumroll, please. Not the a-hole. The main problems with being a rules lawyer is fighting with the DM unnecessarily. However, here, the Dungeon Master is making rules adjustments to the game without saying that they are adjustments. Now, of course, I don't know this system. Maybe you are the person making the mistake. However, outside looking in perspective, doesn't seem to be the case. The Game Master has the right to change the rules. However, I do know it's annoying when the Game Master changes the rules and won't admit that they are changes. That's dumb. It's even more annoying because I agree with you. These changes don't seem very fun. I do admire the oracular process of making a random character. That could be cool, but it's not what you want, and it's not what the game requires, despite what the Game Master says. You didn't slow down the campaign or the game, you left your stuff for between the sessions, and when it was clear this doesn't fit your style, you left. Maybe you could have shortened the arguments and saved yourself a little time, but honestly, I get why you were frustrated, and I wish you luck in finding a game master for this game. Sound off in the comments if you're running an online version of this game. Maybe you can help this person out. I want to share a horror story in regards to an online game, however short. This took place in Roll20 back in 2018. I was playing a female ASMR rogue/cleric of Mask at the time, followed with the players of a tiefling artificer, human wizard, and another I unfortunately forgot. The backstories of everyone's characters are unfortunately not the center focus of the issue during this campaign. I do have to note that I've been attempting to use D&D as a kind of social therapy because I have severe anxiety talking to people thanks to a lot of PTSD and trust issues in my childhood. This was noted to the Dungeon Master, and they were cool about it. As we were playing, the artificer was always trying to get my character's attention, like non-stop. It was becoming very draining every session, but I figured, well, maybe this is just a type of character that is very puppy dog-like, very extroverted and friendly, even though it was a bit abrasive and scary for me as a player, and I, even in character, had to ask the tiefling artificer to slow down and just let me breathe. Obviously, I hear disappointment, but it also seemed to apply to the actual person on the other side of the screen. Things progress on. My character and the human wizard share a moment over some good food and have a laugh as friends. I have literally no interest in romances that I notice some D&D campaigns have. And cue the artificer brewing. Not soon after, he busts into our friendly moment and attempts to drag my character off somewhere, saying that he finds my character beautiful and that he loves me. Not that my character has been in a legit mask the whole time, never revealing her face, symbolism because of my, anxiety with people. I remember leaving the Discord Roll20 session immediately and having a panic attack to the point of tears and hyperventilation. I had apologized to the Dungeon Master, and immediately I was getting messages from Artificer asking me to confirm his feelings and that I loved him back and that he wanted to proceed with an actual dating situation. I immediately blocked and left the campaign that day, again apologizing to the Dungeon Master that I wouldn't be playing their campaign anymore due to Artificer, and they understood. I don't know what happened to that campaign, and I never really looked back, the kicker being that Artificer was a teenager at the time, and I was 26! Only reason I knew is because when we submitted our characters, some Roll20 applications ask you for your first name, how old you are. To further elaborate, my PTSD stems from when I was a kid, and with everything that happened in the campaign, I just couldn't deal. Ending to say, I don't play player characters anymore, and I'm now a forever DM. I feel for you, man. I've had panic attacks over much sillier reasons. This is legit, though. This is it, the worst case scenario for when you spring mature content onto a party without their consent, especially romantic content. This kid was way out of line. I get that he's a kid, but my god, 16, you are mature enough to understand why this is wrong. I know to some people out there this is gonna seem silly. A panic attack over a D&D game, that's stupid. But dude, trust me, anything that connects back to your previous experiences can hit you harder than you could ever expect. I totally understand where this person is coming from, and it sucks that this ruined playing for this person. Hey, writer, if you're out there, take time to heal, and who knows, maybe one day you'll find a group without a player who just sucks. But until then, be well. Alright, if you guys enjoyed this episode of RPG Horror Stories, then please do leave a like. If you want to see more of our content, then you can check out our Q and Play series where I answer your questions in a rambly, unscripted format while playing some video games. It's linked in the cards, and while you're there, subscribe to Crispy's Tavern to get more of our content as it comes out. And finally, if you want to leave your own stories or thoughts, go down in the comments down below. If you can't think of a comment, leave the comment, dang teenagers, to let me know you made it to the end of the video. Hey, by the way, if you have your own stories to send us, you can head down in the description and find an email where you can send your stories directly to us for a chance to be featured in one of these videos. But hey, even if you don't have any stories, in essence, like, comment, subscribe. I have an urgent appointment to get to, so I've got to go. I'll see you all next time. Farewell. That's you asked for. I actually want to eat these.
good.